everyone. Welcome to a quick Smarter News debate debrief. We are not yet 24 hours since the debate, the first and perhaps only debate between former President Trump and Vice President Harris. And there are certainly a few things to talk about how this may or may not impact the election of 2024. But before we get into that, I want to zoom way out because today is September 11th, and we are marking 23 years since the worst terrorist attack in American history. And I don't know about you, but everything seems a little petty compared to talking about that moment and what it means for America and so many families in all of our communities. This was the worst terrorist attack in American history. It launched the United States into 2 decades of war. Thousands of people lost their lives on this day, and thousands of others lost their lives in the following years or had their lives changed forever because of some catastrophic injury. This is a moment that really matters in America, and it brings us back to ourselves. And talking about anything else but that on today feels off to me. It feels antithetical. The whole purpose of the press and of politicians is to serve the people. And part of serving the people is focusing on the stories that really matter. And yes, a presidential election really matters. But this day feels different. And dissecting what transpired last night in some sort of political theater, it almost feels like Sports Center after a debate where people are looking at the different plays that different athletes made, or the different plays or the different one-offs that these politicians said. It can feel a little empty. And I want to recognize that as we try to balance both, recognizing the importance of this day and also recognizing that every American election is high stakes because we care about our country and we care about the direction the country is going. And no matter our political positions or persuasions, I find that most people are just expressing their patriotism in different ways. And that's why we find ourselves at odds. And thankfully, in a country where we can openly debate. And that might be something to think about as we reflect on last night. The American political process is very unique. There are so many countries where you're definitely not going to see a political debate, and you're certainly not going to have the ability to question those in power. And this is one of the reasons why debates matter, because it allows us to tackle several different big topics at one time. It allows us to see our politicians, our candidates in a live setting. And because of that live setting, there's an opportunity for authentic moments. And all of us crave authentic moments to see people who they really are. We also know it's a very high pressure situation. There's no way around that. So also seeing how these candidates perform under high pressure is part of it. So debates do matter. And we know that this debate mattered because it was the first time that we saw Vice President Harris and former President Trump face off. It might be the only time. We also know that back in June, we witnessed a debate that forever changed the course of this election cycle. So it was also a reminder that the stakes for this debate were just as high. We didn't expect necessarily something like that to happen, but you never know what can happen during a debate. So these are the reasons why we want to pay attention. And we're going to pay attention while also remembering the day that we're discussing this. And I think we can do both. Part of having respect for America is having respect for the political process, and this is part of it. When I take a big step back and look at the different analysis of the debate last night, overwhelming the analysis suggests that Vice President Harris came out on top versus former President Trump if you were taking the two of them together and judging them. We're not going to do that here. You can watch the entire debate. I'm going to make sure that you have a link so you could watch the entire debate for yourself. And trying to place winners or losers doesn't feel particularly journalistic. That's actually not why journalists are supposed to be here. There were a lot of different parts of the debate that we could talk about. But one of the things I'd like to focus on is just the structure of the debate. So Whether or not this debate is going to change the course of this election and invite new independent or undecided voters to one side or the other is yet to be determined. We're actually not going to really know that right now. And we may get some polling over the next several weeks that could suggest, perhaps that this debate was a changing moment in the campaign. The thing about polls is that they're always backwards looking. So they're taking a snapshot in time and not something that's real time. And I like to remember that while also looking to see if we could get any feedback. We have more than 50 days until election day. And while early voting has started, there's still a lot of time for any number of events to happen that could change how the American people feel about any one of these candidates. And so leaving space for that is important. 9/11 is actually a reminder of that because on September 10th, 2001, no one knew what was coming the next day. And it forever changed the course of American history and also how we viewed leadership during that time. And of course, I would never wish for anything devastating like that ever to happen again. But it's a reminder of the unexpected. The setting of this debate, to me, and the timing of it is actually one of the big stories coming out of the debate and really raising the question whether or not these sort of debates serve the American people. And let me explain. The debate setting was in Philadelphia, a historic city in American history, in the state of Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, which is a battleground state, a swing state, a very important state for both Republicans and Democrats. So the setting was important, but the setting where the debate actually took place was just steps away from where the Declaration of Independence was signed, where the Constitution was signed, where so many pivotal moments happened in American history. And really, these questions about what does liberty actually look like? These were the questions of our founders and still questions of today. And there was a real opportunity for this debate to look or feel different because of that, to actually ask some questions about philosophy, like how strong do you want to see the federal government as president? How strong do you think the federal government should be versus the states? What is the appropriate role look like? But we really didn't get any questions like that. And surprisingly, we got no reference at all to September 11th. There was a quick discussion about Afghanistan, but nothing about the event that explained why we were in Afghanistan in the first place. And this is where I'm showing my bias, because to me, the real news from the debate is this question about whether or not the debates are actually serving the American public. Because you have lived and survived through so many historic times, whether it was the September 11th terrorist attack. Some of you may be young enough that you were not present for those attacks, but this is still a part of our living history. You still know people that were connected to that in some way. For some of us, it's a searing day that we'll never forget. And there was just no mention of it. There's no mention of it. And this is where I see an opportunity to reach out to the audience and say, this is part of our shared experience. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how do you prevent another terrorist attack like that from happening? What do we think about our state of national security in the decades that have followed? How are we making sure that we are avoiding future wars rather than setting ourselves up for one? How do you prioritize protecting the American people and respect their civil liberties? This is a big conversation in the aftermath of 9/11. So there just seems to be such a missed opportunity. And what I want for you is that your time is well used. The thing that we all have in common is time is our most limited resource. And so I really want the American press to rise to the occasion and meet the moment and give you something that is valuable, that makes you think, that celebrates the fact that we can have a debate and we have a freedom to ask questions. And we didn't really get that last night. What we got is a laundry list of different issues that in some cases were rushed through. It started with the economy and a robust debate about the economy that lasted for a while, but then quickly moved to any number of different issues, from abortion to the war in Ukraine, to tariffs, to fracking and beyond. There are so many issues. There wasn't really enough time to untangle any of them. And because of that, there wasn't any new news per se on these issues from either candidate. You didn't learn something brand new that you never never learned before on these particular issues. And let me explain this, this question about the federal government and this and state power is as old as our country. And that is something that in the city of Philadelphia, in the state of Pennsylvania, that we could have easily dug into in an issue like abortion, where there were a lot of ways that you could approach this story, but it's really a question of the power of the federal government versus the state for our laws and protecting our rights as citizens, and who has who has the upper hand in that, who should be able to determine how a citizen lives. Is it the state or is it the federal government? What does that look like? So there was just a lot of ways that this could have been a unique conversation, and it feels like a bit of a missed opportunity when the audience is ready for more. If you look at some of the most popular media platforms in the nation, or quite frankly around the world, you're talking about podcasts that can go 2 to 3 hours and dig into any single topic. We could do the same for presidential debates. We don't have to do the same format that we've always done. We could pick one topic and have these deep discussions about it so we could really unravel what these people stand for. And it just felt, again, like a missed opportunity for that, where the last debate was exposing some or highlighting questions that had swirled for, quite frankly, years around President Biden. This was an opportunity for newness and a question of, could we see something different? And as far as real information, we didn't really get it. And part of the reason I see this too is I'm responsible for cutting our clips for Smarter News. What are the clips that I want to take for you so they could highlight those clips? And it was difficult to find those. What are the moments that really, if you could see one thing, and I have you for 30 seconds to 3 minutes, that's the guide that we use. What would I show you? And it's tough. I'm going to show you one clip that actually has created the most viral moment, that is creating an opportunity to learn, which is coming from a very unexpected point of view. So we're going to get to that in the moment. Don't worry about it. We're definitely going to get to that. So overall, again, if I could just summarize the headlines that we're seeing are suggesting that Vice President Harris came out on top. President Trump obviously feels differently. There's questions about the moderation of the debate and some of the live fact checking that happened and whether or not that was even handed. Uh, I think the broader question is whether or not the debate is consequential. Is it consequential to this election? Was there a moment that felt like a sea change? And there was not. There was not a moment that felt like this has forever changed the course of the election. So in that way, not that we're back to where we started, but there's a question about whether or not how much this really impacts the story of 2024. Now, there was a moment that certainly got a lot of attention. And in order to set up this moment, I would like to play a question from one of you that is asking the question that I believe so many of you likely have. So let's hear from Tonya.
Hi, Jenna. Tonya here. I'm a longtime follower of Smarter News, and this is the first time I'm leaving a voice memo. But I had a question, and I thought maybe you could answer it. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for all the research you do. I trust you and what you tell us. I feel like you actually are providing the news that we want to hear, and it's not just the one side or the other that we hear from mainstream media. So anyway, I'm very curious about this Ohio and eating pets thing that came out of the debate. Is there any legitimacy to that? I've read several different articles online this morning. Some say yes, some say it's absurd and no. And then I saw this morning some footage from a police body cam, which actually showed them pulling someone over, or someone who was out, and she was eating a cat. And it didn't look like it had been cooked. And I'm wondering, is this because they're hungry? Or is this some sort of ritual? Is this really happening? Why are there so many Haitians in Ohio to start with? Anyway, just thought maybe you could answer some of these questions. If you can do some research, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, and thank you for all you do.
I mean, that's unexpected, right? To hear someone say, can you look into that eating pets thing? I mean, that's something we didn't expect from the debate. And so this is an opportunity perhaps that we could learn a little bit about what this story is all about. In order to do that, I'm going to play a big chunk of the debate. So just hang on. Both candidates had 2 minutes to answer a question and respond. And I want you to see how this topic came up in the debate. In order to see it, you have to play this big chunk of sound. So let me play this for you. And don't worry, on the other side, we have some more information.
Now to immigration and border security. We know it's an issue that's important to Republicans, Democrats, voters across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress, and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like to respond.
Let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people to come into our country, and look at what's happening to the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as rallies are concerned, as far as the reason they go is they like what I say. They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase, make America great again. She's destroying this country, and if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
But the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
Okay. So, an unexpected moment in the debate, a topic that we didn't necessarily see coming. Let's talk a little bit about it. First, I just want to point out that the question that started this whole conversation was about the border. And it was a question posed to Vice President Harris about what she would do differently, and also why there was a waiting period, perhaps to implementing certain plans to address the record number of encounters that have been happening at not only the southern border, but also the northern border. For both of these candidates, there was not an answer given about what they would do differently or new to solve this problem. And this is something that had happened repeatedly in the debate where the question was asked, it was turned by one of the candidates or the other, and there wasn't really a conclusion. There wasn't a follow-up to get to that point of like, let's go back to the border and why we talked about that question to begin with. Obviously, this tangent led us in a different direction. And this is a question that I'm getting a lot. So, Tonya, you're not alone. And I too have looked into this story because at the beginning of this week, I started to see this social media activity about animal, like what is happening. So I have a little bit of research on this, and hopefully it'll clarify somewhat of what's taking place. And really the truth is there is a bigger story that we should be addressing that magnifies a bigger point in this country, which is an overall question about immigration and what's best for the nation. So, Springfield, Ohio is a community of just over 50,000 people. And over the last several years, they've seen an influx of Haitians. Haitians are able to have this temporary protected status by the US government, which means that they're not granted asylum, but they have permission to be here. And part of the reason they have permission to be here is because Haiti is a failed state where gangs have taken over the country. So this protected status has been extended to Haitians. There has been, and we have covered the border situation over the last several years. And one of the big headlines that's come out of the record number of people coming to the border is that the stereotype that may be associated with the border, that everyone that's there is Hispanic or has a Hispanic background, is just not true. We're seeing nationalities of all types come across the US southern border, and Haitians have been a big group as well. So that's really something to know that's separate from this story overall. Now, why did Haitians wind up in Springfield, Ohio? Well, according to the local politicians there, Springfield, Ohio, like many places, is a community where the economy has really struggled and there were jobs available. And I'm projecting a little bit here, but my family came from northern Italy, immigrated into the United States, came to the San Francisco Bay Area because other northern Italians had gone there and there was work that was available. So there was a community of people, of like-minded people there, and there was opportunity. And it seems like this is similar here in Springfield, Ohio, where there was a group of Haitians that came initially, and now there's thousands of Haitians that are there. For a community of about 50,000 people or just a bit over that, there's the estimate of between 12 and 15,000 Haitians that have come into the area. So you think about that, you're talking about 20%, 20% of the city has seen this influx of new people with a similar background being Haitian. So, okay, what about these questions about animals and eating? Like, what is that all about? There have been some broadcasts of Springfield, Ohio, like city commission meetings. And in these meetings, there was a viral clip that came from someone that came to the microphone who said he was a social media influencer, or person that liked to talk about things in social media, and that basically the people in the government were ignoring some of the real problems that were part of the community. And he mentioned something about animals being eaten. That's one place that this has come from. I'm choosing not to use that clip. I don't know too much about this person in particular. This has become a viral clip, so it's out there, it's available, and it's one of several people sort of talking about this. It hit such a high point that before the debate happened, the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, held a press conference, and this is what he had to say.
We're here to address recent rumors that have been circulated related to our Haitian community. We wish to clarify that we have not been able to verify any credible reports or specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community. The news story regarding a cat being killed and consumed did not originate in Springfield. It actually involved a Canton woman who was arrested for animal cruelty last month. Rumors like this are taken away from the real issues, such as the issues involving our housing, our school resources, and our overwhelmed healthcare system.
Okay, I have one more person from this same press conference for you to hear as well, because she addressed sort of a side question to this.
What about these claims that there have been abductions or killings of wildlife in local parks or otherwise?
That is absolutely false. My fellow County Commissioner Sasha Rittenhouse is back there. She rode with the local game warden last week and asked that question, and we have it on good authority that that is an urban legend.
Okay, so these are city officials on the record. The governor of Ohio actually was speaking about Springfield earlier this week as well. So you could see that this story is one that is based in Ohio, but has now become national. It became national before the debate. Now it's even more in the public eye. And this announcement from the governor actually came before those local officials held this press conference. So I want to read this to you. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine today announced new state support for the city of Springfield, which is dealing with significant stress on its healthcare and public safety systems due to the influx of thousands of Haitian migrants over the last several years. Quote, I want the people of Springfield and Clark County to know that as we move forward, we will continue to do everything we can to help the community deal with this surge of migrants, said Governor DeWine. The federal government has not demonstrated that they have any kind of plan to deal with the issue. We will not walk away. He goes on. This is not a quote. This is, again, just reading from the press briefing or the press release. The influx of Haitians to Springfield and Clark County has significantly impacted local primary care providers due to the increased number of patients and the need for more translation services. In general, migrants from Haiti have had little to no healthcare services prior to arriving in the United States, including vaccinations. Governor DeWine announced today that he is dedicating $2.5 million towards expanding primary care access for everyone living in Springfield. There's also a topic that the local officials addressed, because I listened to their full press conference, that you would not know otherwise. And apparently there is an issue with driving in Springfield because many of the new people to the area do not have a license and do not understand the rules of the road. And it's becoming a significant enough issue that it's causing traffic accidents and dangerous situations on the roads in general. So this is something that the governor of the state also discussed to address, I'm reading again, to address the increase in dangerous driving in Springfield by inexperienced Haitian drivers and all others who disregard traffic laws. Governor DeWine directed the Ohio State Highway Patrol to support the Springfield Police Department with traffic enforcement. So this is a real story. The question of immigration and the impact that it's having on communities across the country is a real story. We're seeing that for real in Springfield, Ohio. The side story of the allegations of pets or wild animals being harassed or eaten, I mean, talk about a topic I didn't think I was going to have to address in 2024, but here we are. Right now, the public officials on the record say that's not taking place. And I want you to hear that for yourself, because I think you will see other things on the internet. And that's where the story is at this moment. There's actually a much bigger story, which is that this community is stressed because they do not have the resources to help support the new people that have come in. I was watching an interview with PBS where there was a factory owner that said this has been so important for the community where the factories have been suffering, that Haitians have come in and are working as part of his team and changing his business for the better. So I also want you to know that there's several different opinions about this floating around in the community of Springfield, Ohio, and otherwise. So the claims about the animals have not been substantiated by officials on the record. That's what we know as of today. But Springfield is having a real issue that they've dealt with for years. And because this is an issue that other communities are facing that are not border states, this highlights why immigration is one of the major issues of 2024. Yes, President Trump mentioned this story that's having a viral moment. But we've covered on Smarter News crime that's been associated with those coming across the border without legal status, the murders of several American women. There's real crimes that have been on the record and substantiated that are not rumored. And there's also some real issues that these communities are struggling with that actually deserve more of a spotlight because it exemplifies one of the big challenges that someone in the Oval Office is going to confront. But we totally did not have that debate. We did not have that discussion last night. And again, it's a missed opportunity. I think there's actually something to learn. And that's why I want to thank you, Tonya, for your question and for the compliments of Smarter News. That means a lot to us, by the way. But I'm so brave that I'm so proud of you that you were brave enough to ask the question that everyone's probably asking, like, what is this all about? And the reality is, Tonya, there's a much bigger story there. And now we've learned about it. And now we can follow it. So this is something I think is worth highlighting. Immigration, like many of the other issues, like the economy, sometimes don't get the attention that they deserve. And it becomes such a partisan issue. But when people go and vote, it's one of the first things on their minds. And we're seeing there's a real question here again about the relationship between the federal government and the states. Who's taking the lead? Who's taking care of this issue? How are we going to support our communities? So just one part of the debate, we could pull out many others. I like to be quick, concise, and nonpartisan. This is not so quick, but I appreciate you staying with me because I was digging. And this is what I found over the last couple hours. I'm sure there's even more to learn, but this is what I think would be helpful for you in any conversation you're having on this topic. And now we can update each other as we learn more. And that's what this is supposed to be about. So let's see. I'm curious to hear from you what other moments stood out in the debate, whether or not this changed your mind in any particular way, what other issues you're going to be now focused on as we're in this final stretch before Election Day. And remember, there's always the debate and what happened live. And then there's the viral moments from the debate that almost take on a life of their own. And we'll see how both campaigns use these moments moving ahead. Before I let you go, I want to just leave you with what we're looking at as the photo of the day. At Ground Zero this morning, at the annual memorial that takes place, the reading of the names of the victims of the terrorist attacks, we actually have a unique picture that I think deserves some attention and perhaps some reflection. You have Vice President Harris, President Biden, former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg, President Trump, former President Trump, and his running mate, J.D. Vance. And they're all in a line. They all have their hand over their heart, as whether we don't know if it's the Pledge of Allegiance or the Star Spangled Banner, but they're showing respect and they're showing it together in one line as a unified force. And as we're thinking about the way ahead, it's important to remember that the president is just one part of our government. And any president, regardless of party, will have to work with Congress to actually make change. We don't have a king. We have a president that is part of the executive branch. And the story that this president is a part of, whoever the future president will be, is a story that's going to involve a lot of other people too. And that also was a missed opportunity last night to talk about how do you reach across the aisle? How do you actually work together, especially in a time where we have very strong sides that are almost equally weighted. So I'm going to leave you with this image today. I look forward to your thoughts and always look forward to delivering quick, concise, nonpartisan news on smarternews.com. Have a great day, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Quick, concise, nonpartisan, Smarter News, a refuge from the storm. I'm Jenna. Thank you for choosing Smarter.